Hey guys, Project Void here. Today we're going to go over vMenu permissions. This one has been requested by a couple of users now, and I thought I would get into it a little more. So vMenu permissions are actually fairly simple, actually. Obviously, first thing you're going to want to do is go to Google and look up vMenu. I'll also leave a link down below here as I'm not showing it. But then we want to go to the release tab and click on the latest. We're going to want the zip file, which is called vmenu-v3.6.0.zip. And then now we want to go where our server is, go to tx data, or cfx in this case, resources. We're going to make a new folder. We're going to call it menus. We're going to open that up. We're going to make another folder called vMenu. And we're going to go to our zip file, select all, and move it over. So now we notice this is what we all have now. So we got our config, which this is what we're doing right now. But make sure your server is started, which it is. Then I'm going to go to our local host for our TX dashboard. Like so. I'm going to go to our cfx config. I'm going to go down below here, ensure, menus, and save. So we're going to move this over to our other side here quick. Another thing, which actually I'll show you before we actually get into it though. So now I'm going to move this over and I'm going to go start up fivem. Sorry if you guys can hear fans in the background. It's pretty hot today, so trying to keep it cool, if that makes any sense. Okay, you guys can't hear it, but the music's playing. Anyway, we're going to connect to our server here. Okay. I forgot the last one we did was ESX. Okay, so now we're loading into the server. Shouldn't take that long. Okay, so now if you pay attention towards the bottom of my screen on the left side, when we start, I'll refresh it first. Okay. If you notice on there, it says alert vMenu is set up to ignore permissions. So if I go press M, well, as you see, these are just the default. Everyone can use all of these. But you notice there's some options missing. So we're going to actually fix that. So now if we go to our permissions.cfg, which, let me quick get rid of this. Okay, so now we can see a few things. Obviously, do we want it to use permissions? Yes. So obviously if it's set to false and you execute these permissions, it will just ignore it. It'll get the alert that we just used. So we want to keep that true. Now if you want it to be staff only, which as it says here, when this is set to true, we want to make a new thing called that, which we'll get to here in a bit. Obviously, it's not recommended. Let's see here. Okay, so disable player stats setup. Basically, it's like right now it won't display like my stand ball, lung capacity, driving skills, etc. Personally, I always have this as false. You can set it to true if you really want to. It's really up to you. So now, currently this is set to M, and this is set to F2. This is just no clip, so like if I went in the server right now and press F2, I can no clip. And obviously, like I said earlier, I pressed M to open the menu. Now let's say you want to change it. That's pretty easy actually. Again, go to Google, and I'll link this down below too. And go to controls, which obviously is docs, fivem, docs, game reference controls, control F, and then we want to look up F1. This is just a popular one, obviously. You don't have to do F1, but basically search up your control that you want. So F1 is 288. So we're going to change this to 288, which you don't have to comment it out, but I like to. It's now F1. Now, if you don't want no clip, you just remove F1 in your search and put none. Now, there's multiple nones. So, oh, my bad. So basically, let me explain it here. Actually, I think it tells you at the top of the file. Yep, it does. Okay, so Xbox controller is on this side. It's like, for instance, if I had an input for 0, which would be the next camera, by default it would be V on your keyboard and it would be the backspace on your controller. So obviously, if you don't want it at all, you need to look up none. Basically, we're looking for stuff like this, where it says none on both sides. So we could use 65. Another one would be 94, which is fine. One more. And then 156. But issue with that is input map. So you kind of need to watch what it does, because I'm trying to think. There was one time, I think it was one of these ones, where I want to say it was one of these two. I put it, for example, 239, but every time I would input my cursor, I would no clip. So it might be set as none, but that's just because it's your cursor. That's why it has none. Because obviously you can't control your cursor via a keyboard or anything. It's set for your mouse. So you need to watch what you import it as. One that I think worked, which obviously we can test it too, is I want to say it was 94 and 65. But obviously now this depends on what kind of vehicle you have too. So let's play it safer right now. Let's just do 94. Obviously we can always come back and change it. 94. I'm going to put none dash and then what it actually is. So it would be input vehicle stunt UD. Okay, so now the next one would be keep spawn vehicles from despawning if replaced vehicle is disabled. Basically, what that's basically pretty much saying is when I go to the spawn manager or vehicle spawner, when I, for instance, spawn the caddy, obviously it would, well, spawn the caddy in for me. But now if I wanted like the adder or something, I would type in adder, but it would replace the caddy. If this is set to false, it will keep it from despawning. So basically, if it's set to false, it will keep it will not keep it present by default. Obviously, the user can change this via their settings too, obviously. So now the next one is if you automatically want to ban a cheater, keep in mind that, well, yeah, it actually says it right here, not 100% reliable. That's why it's disabled by default. You can do it if you want, but I'm going to leave it disabled just due to the fact that, yeah, it's not 100% reliable. You could be like no clipping around and it could, you know, see you as a cheater whether you're the server owner or not, and will ban you. And then obviously you can change this if it's disabled or enabled, sorry. Let's see, ban log actions, yes. So basically all the ban actions will be in your vMenu.log file, which actually, oh yeah, I don't have any bans. Okay, but yeah, when you ban someone, it'll make a log file. Same thing for kick. ELS compatibility, you keep that as false unless your server has ELS, then you do. Basically, as it states here, this option will enable the mode for ELS and other siren control scripts by disabling vMenu's control over the sirens completely. I've learned if I'm using Lux control for non-ELS vehicles, perfectly fine. But if you have ELS, you need to have this as true. Handle invisibility is true. Basically, if the player is ticked as invisible, it'll make it impossible for other scripts to alter this status. Let's see. Rockstar editor. So basically, obviously, we're going to keep it as false. But to explain it, it's basically saying, so like if I was in the server and I entered Rockstar editor, it will quit my session. So you can do that. It's true or false. Doesn't matter. This stuff, well, as it says here, will be in the About menu, which I'll show you. Typically, I always leave it, just due to the fact that I think that this user deserves the, everyone knows who did it, but, still, I think they deserve it, the credit for it. Let's see, moving on, teleport to waypoint keybind. I leave it alone, just due to the fact that, personally, I've never had to use it. Obviously, you change it the same way as we did above, but it's F7 by default. vMenu disable spawning as default character. Pretty much, I like to have this as true. I'll keep it as false for this, tutorial, but typically I like it true. So basically, every time a person joins or you join your server, it will spawn you as your default character, meaning you have to set up obviously a character, MP character with vMenu, which is easy. I can kind of go over that too, but basically when you save it and set it as your default, anytime you die or join, etc., you'll respawn as your default character. I always have this as false. I've seen some people actually have it where it's like a paid thing. I'm not going to get into that more because I don't really support that type of stuff. It's kind of dumb, but basically if you wanted it to be set to true, basically people will be able to spawn in as animals or spawn animals, etc. It also says here recommended to leave this disabled, but if you really want to use animals as a player pet, then go ahead and enable this. You have been warned this will cause game crashes to occur regularly. I've had it enabled once, and I've had a server have it enabled once or so. I personally haven't crashed, but I suppose it really does depend on what you use. PvP, player versus player, aka friendly fire. It says up here what it can do. By default, it's set to 0, which it won't do anything. Meaning, like if someone else joined, I can't kill them. 1 is to enable it for everyone, or 2, which I never understood, is disable friendly fire for everyone. Technically, wouldn't that be 0? I mean, I guess to me that seems like 0, but whatever. I normally have it as 1, obviously. Okay, some of this stuff is kind of useless, but I decided to go over all of it, so I do apologize if it's taken a lot longer. I currently do not know what time I'm at right now, but basically, keep player head props true. Basically, if it's set to true, the props will stay on the player, aka default for vMenu GTA Online behavior. False vMenu will not touch this feature by default. This means the head props will fall off when the player is hit, which is default behavior, blah blah blah. So it doesn't really matter apparently. But basically, like if I had like a helmet, etc. So whether it'll fall off or not. Where was it? Okay. So now, convos. Basically, if you want the vMenu to use your server info, if that makes sense. I've always had it on as false, so I don't have much info on it really. So I'm sorry about that. Okay, so player distance basically 500. I'm trying to think, is it? Okay, it's using game units as measurement. I don't know what that is. I guess meters or something similar. Anyway, basically in 500, for instance, meters, you'll see the player name, if enabled, obviously. Let's see, disable entity outline tools. Basically, it shows you whether it wants to disable the entity outlines, hashes, handles, etc. in the development tools. If you ban someone, this is where you can change the message. Obviously, with support URL, you change it with your Google form or your Discord or whatever. That's what that's for. Otherwise, obviously, you can change the whole message itself. Okay, so let's say you're using QB-Core. This is something for QB-Core and I think ESX. I don't really use ESX. Not a big fan. I'm more of a fan of QB-Core. But for sure with QB-Core, you need these disabled if you're using the QB Weather or any other weather app. Same goes for you standalone people also. vMenu has its own built-in time and weather stuff. If you're using another one and the sky's flickering, etc., if you're looking at their docs, it actually says disable it. This is how you would disable it via here, or obviously get rid of the other one. So by default, they're all true and all this stuff. But if you're using QB-Core, you would disable line 98 and where was it? I think it's down here. Line 116. Those ones are the ones that you disabled, the other ones, and obviously 100. All that. But if you're going to use it, basically this is just saying, oh, do you want to use vMenu's weather sync? By default, it's true. Same with the dynamic weather, aka automatic weather changes. How many minutes, between the different weather. So by default, when you spawn in or the server starts, etc., it'll be clear. In 15 minutes, that can change to like raining, cloudy, sunny, etc. Blackout basically is blackout mode enabled by default. I like to have it as false just because that kind of defeats everything, but whatever. Let's see. Okay, so when you force a weather change, whether you go to their weather and be like, oh, well, I want it to be sunny, it'll take 30 seconds. Obviously, values must be between 0, which would be instant, or 45 seconds. And obviously, if you want to enable snow or not, by default, it's set to false. Basically, if you enable this, there will be snow on the ground, and you unlock the snow weather and all that fun stuff. For time, pretty much the same thing. Whether you want it enabled or disabled via the vMenu. If you want to freeze the time, true or false. Let's see. How long it takes, aka 2,000 milliseconds. 1 second here. Okay. The setting determines how long in-game minutes last in real time. By default, 1 GTA 5 minute is 2 seconds. The value here is measured in milliseconds and be a positive number greater than 100. So yeah, every 2 seconds is a minute. So basically you can change this. It needs to be greater than 100 in milliseconds. So like I could do like 20,000 milliseconds, which I want to say is 20 seconds, etc. But basically every 2 seconds is 1 minute in Grand Theft Auto 5. And then obviously by default, what hour you want it, it would be 7 a.m. on the dot. And then if you want it to sync with your time machine, so like if you're on a VPS, it'll sync with your VPS time. So for instance, if you had it, if you made the server and you enabled it and it was like 11 o'clock at night, it would go at 11 o'clock at night. Which obviously then prevents you from freezing the time, etc. and all that. I'm not going to read over all of this stuff, so if you guys are really interested in it, go ahead and read all the comments. It's 100% up to you. And then lastly, vehicle options, whether you want to use the come along colors, which actually I'm pretty sure this is new, because this wasn't here before. They did recently update vMenu, which I gotta find when that was, but I can't see it right now. But basically, setting this to true will enable the color vehicle paints category in the primary color menu. You must be streaming those colors in order for it to function properly. So yeah, that's new. So I've never messed with that before. Okay, so now on to the permissions. This is the groups and players, pretty much, which I will get to here in a second. I gotta check something. Oh, okay. Just looking at the DM. Anyway, so group admin, by default, your groups are down here. So it'll be add principal, group admin, group moderator. For instance, we can do group.leo. We'll use that as like a template here. So then what we can do actually, excuse me, we could do LEO group players. And then it'd be the same thing up here, which obviously we'll just copy that. But instead of group moderator, it'd be group LEO. Obviously, these ones are just examples. They're probably an actual person, but they're never going to join your server. So, yeah. So right now you might be wondering, well, how do I get my identifier? There's a few ways you can. So you can go to your TX admin, assuming you joined your server already and all that, which if you've been following along in the series, you should have. You click on players, go to players, click on you, and go to IDs, and it tells you all of your identifiers. So like, it won't, does it tell you? It will not tell your Steam ID. So typically I don't use Steam. If you use Steam, I can make another video on that. Just let me know down in the comments below, or let me know in the Discord server. I typically tend to use license or fivem. It really just matters. So for example, I'm going to go with group admin. Group LEO works the same way, but I'm going to do add principal. I'll change that to my license. And I'm going to hashtag and put my name, so I know who it is. You don't have to do that, but it's recommended. So now, as you notice up here, are ace perms. So this is just global. This is for everything. So basically, if you're an admin, you can't be kicked or banned. If you're a moderator, you can see the staff. Now right here, another way you can disable no clip actually. So instead of going through the hassle as we did up here and looking up what one's none, you could theoretically just hashtag that out. So now either way it will not work. So now, as you notice on the vMenu, there was multiple categories. Online players, which all the perms are here. Online options or player options. Your vehicle options, vehicle spawner menu. Your saved vehicles, personal vehicles, player appearance, time options, weather options, weapon options, which then has all the weapons, weapon loadouts, and just music, and then voice chat. So there's, when we get down to voice chat, there's also another thing you need to change, assuming you're using a different voice thing. Anyway, so to go to online players. Now, one thing to point out, when it says add ace built in at everyone, that means everyone can use it. A normal user can use it, I can use it as an admin, moderator, staff, LEO, everyone can use it. So if you don't want people to use it, either you can change, for instance, teleport. I can do group.admin, so now only admins can teleport. Or if you have, for instance, down here, if you have staff only, it would be group.staff, or what did they say up here? vMenu.staff, sorry. Which then down here, I believe that's already built in, so what you could theoretically do, and obviously we can change it sometimes too, we can just do, oops. Go down here and change it to staff. Obviously we're not going to do that, so if you're doing staff only, please let me know if that does work. If not, we can go over how to fix that for you. Anyway, going back to this, so now only admins can do the teleport. If you want moderators to do it too, you just make another one, copy that, change it to group moderator. Let's see. Same thing with waypoint. Basically, waypoint is saying, oh, well, I want to know where so-and-so is. I can set a waypoint. Typically, I like that. If you don't want anybody using it, including your staff, just hashtag it out. And then spectate also. Typically, spectate I like to do for staff only. It's just kind of wrong for someone else to spectate. Now, obviously, only moderators and admins can do is summon, kill, kick, temp ban, view bans, etc. This is okay. This I've debating if this is new or not. This is not allowed for anyone by default, but if you really want to enable it, I suggest you only enable this for server owner / head of staff of your team, which basically is the private messages. I'm leaving that disabled for now. So now, another thing too, as you can see right here, all these are hashtagged out. Oh, well, nobody can use them. You're wrong. So basically, each category is also going to have a .all. So basically, I can have all these hashtagged out, but everyone can use every single one of these. If you don't want that, just hashtag that out and go to everyone that you want. So, for example, if I want everyone to have unlimited stamina, which is fine with me with the default server. Excuse me. Let's see. Other ones, because I'll actually use this one too, so we'll go over it here. Fast run. No ragdoll. Well, never wanted, yes. Obviously. We can let them clean themselves, dry themselves. There's no purpose of letting them wet themselves. That's kind of dumb. And we'll allow them to have scenarios. So now they only have unlimited, all that. But another thing we could do too is, what if I want, like admins to have all of it? Well, that's easy. Just change it to the group.admin. Same thing with, group.moderator too. But we're not going over moderator stuff right now. Same thing with vehicle options. We're not going to go over that because it's basically just a repeat of what I just did. That's fine. Okay, there was... Where is it? Right here. Vehicle options. If you don't want people to repair the options, hashtag this out and keep that hashtagged. I know that was a common thing. Okay, so skipping down to like time options and weather options, basically they're limited to only group.moderator. Obviously, if you have group.admin, it's by default already added in for you. So just because it says moderator, you're perfectly fine. Weapons, we're going to leave alone for right now. Most of this stuff is honestly just, just repeat. For instance, like and why they did this, I'm not exactly sure, especially for like, not best to give this for everyone. Granted, that's, group moderator, but like, they pretty much have every single one of them enabled, but this. But now actually looking at it, I see why, because they have a couple group moderators in it. But basically, for instance, if I don't want everyone to clear the area, all I do is just hashtag it out. Now they can't clear the area. Voice chat. So, a couple things actually. So, if you're using, for example, KiwiCore. By default, KiwiCore has its own voice thing, which I believe is Palma voice. I could be wrong. Obviously, Palma voice and this voice chat don't get along. So, all you really need to do is just hashtag. Theoretically, you don't have to do this considering no one can use that menu, but I like to hashtag it anyway, or you could just delete it. I don't prefer you delete it, just hashtag it out. Obviously, if you don't have autosave like I do, then we'll save it. We can exit out of that. We can now go over here So as mentioned earlier, by default it is currently in your configs here. But a couple ways we can do this. We can open up our server config, and typically this is not your full thing, but typically what I like to do, excuse me, wow, when doing permissions here, what I typically do is, give me 1 second, just want to make sure I have the right thing here. Oh yeah, okay, I did start it. So basically what I like to do is execute, which obviously this is the default way. I'll show the default way first, and then I will go ahead and resources / vMenu, which actually isn't true because then it's actually menu. I think it's menus / vMenu / and then I believe it's config, and then our permissions .cfg. That's the default way of doing it. Another way, which I like to do, is execute, and then at my basically at should be like your resource file, if that makes like any sense at all. Then typically what I like to do is vMenu, like that. So basically it'll go wherever our vMenu is, open the config, and then execute that. So just to be safe that I did it right, we're going to hashtag this one out and save it. We're going to move this over here, same with this. Then we're going to open fivem. We're going to also go to our TX admin, where you can do it the hard reboot way too. It doesn't really matter. But we gotta restart a server. Every time you have an execute file, aka our permissions file, your server needs to be reset. So we're gonna quick reset my server. And then typically you can actually watch in live console. Sometimes it tells you if it executed it or not. If you got a bigger server, there's no point watching, but this is a fairly small server. Right here, it did not execute it. So for right now, then we can unhashtag the first one that we did, save it, reset the server again. As I just froze my console, awesome. Clear my console, restart my server. And there it executed. So now if I connect to my server, and if I press M, nothing pops up, but if I press F1, now it comes up. But if you notice, now I got banned players. That's how you know it came in. So basically every banned player will now be here. And then I can, private message, ban permanently, print identifiers, which is another way, which then you can get through licenses, stuff like that. So now if someone else is in here, yeah. And now as you see, I have God mode. By default I got unlimited stamina and never wanted. But like if I didn't have permissions, then I wouldn't have that stuff. Well, besides those two. But anyway, I really hope this helped people. I'm sorry it was more of a lengthy video. I think we're going on 40 minutes now, so sorry it's been kind of lengthy, but we will see you guys next time. Peace.